Tonight, the karma keeping you awake may not be a curse from the past, but a sentence your own tired mind keeps rereading in the dark. Maybe you are lying there now, under a blanket that should feel warm, on a mattress that should feel safe, while the house has gone quiet and the world outside your window has softened into shadows. Your body is asking for sleep, but something inside keeps turning like a small wheel. A memory rises, a conversation returns. A face appears without being invited. You close your eyes, and the mind opens another unfinished door. You may tell yourself you should be over it by now, because the calendar has moved, because the phone has been silent, because morning responsibilities do not care how heavy midnight feels. But pain does not always obey the clock. Some feelings linger like smoke in a room after the candle has gone out. You cannot see the flame anymore, yet the scent remains in the curtains, in the air, in the quiet places where your breath slows. This is why night can feel so honest. It removes the noise that protected you during the day, and suddenly you hear everything you have been trying not to hear. In Buddhist teachings, karma is often misunderstood as some distant punishment waiting to find you. But tonight let us place that fear down. Karma is also the pattern you keep repeating before you know you are repeating it. It is the thought you water every night until it becomes a garden of worry. It is the story you tell yourself about what happened, who left, what you lost, and why you should have known better. It is not here to shame you. It is asking to be seen with kinder eyes now. There are nights when the past does not return loudly. It does not knock on the door or demand attention. It simply sits at the edge of the bed, like an old guest who never learned how to leave. You may feel it as tightness in your chest, a flutter in your stomach, a pressure behind the eyes, or a sudden urge to check a message that may never come. The mind reaches for explanation, because explanation feels like control. If you can understand why it happened, maybe you can finally relax. But some answers do not open peace tonight. Sometimes peace begins when you stop forcing the locked door and sit quietly beside it. So breathe with me for a moment, not as a perfect meditation, not as something you must do correctly, but as a simple return to the body that has carried you through this long day. Feel the weight of your shoulders sink 1 inch deeper. Let your jaw soften, as if it no longer needs to hold back words you never said. Let your hands unclench. Nothing important must be solved in the next few minutes. The night is wide enough to hold your confusion, and your breath is patient enough to guide you through it. The karma that keeps you awake at night often wears the mask of unfinished business. It whispers, if only you had answered differently, if only they had understood you, if only you could go back and change one small thing. But Zen wisdom asks a gentler question. What if the mind returns, not because the past can be repaired, but because your relationship to the past is still asking to be healed? What if the lesson is not to rewrite the story, but to stop sleeping inside it every night? Imagine a small lamp left on in an empty room. From the hallway, it looks like someone is still inside. You wait, you listen, you wonder whether you should knock, return, apologize, explain, defend yourself, or ask why they did what they did. But when morning comes, you realize the room was empty. Only the lamp had been burning. Many memories are like this. The person may be gone, the event may be finished, the season may have changed, yet a light remains on inside awareness, and your nervous system mistakes that light for life returning. It prepares for another conversation, another chance, another wound, another explanation. Gently tonight, we begin turning toward that lamp without blaming ourselves for keeping it on. You did not choose this restlessness because you are weak. You learned it because at some point your heart believed vigilance would keep you safe. If you remembered every detail, maybe pain would not surprise you again. If you analyzed every silence, maybe abandonment would not catch you unprepared. If you replayed the past enough times, maybe you could find the exact place where suffering began. This is not madness. It is an exhausted form of protection seeking rest. In the language of karma, every repeated reaction plants a seed. A fearful thought plants a fearful seed. A resentful memory plants a resentful seed. A moment of compassion plants a different seed. The mind is not punished by these seeds. It simply lives among what has been planted most often. And because night is quiet, because your phone is finally down, because there are no errands, meetings, emails, groceries, or traffic to distract you, the strongest seeds rise first. They are not proof that you are broken. They are invitations to understand what has been watered too long. So when an old thought comes tonight, do not call it an enemy. Do not call it destiny. Do not call it the truth of who you are. Call it a seed appearing in awareness. Call it a visitor from an old weather pattern. Call it karma asking for a new response. And the new response does not need to be dramatic. It may be as small as one breath. It may be the quiet choice not to follow the thought into another hour of questioning. It may be placing one hand on your chest and saying softly, "This is old pain, not present danger." Notice how different that feels. The body has been waiting for permission to stand down. The heart has been waiting to stop proving that it was hurt. The mind has been waiting for someone wiser within you to say, "We have carried this far enough for tonight." Not forever, perhaps. Not with perfect enlightenment, just for tonight. That is how deep healing often begins in real human life. Not with thunder, not with a grand announcement, but with a smaller refusal to keep feeding the same loop after dark. You can be gentle and still strong. You can remember and not return. You can feel regret without becoming its servant. You can miss someone without making your nervous system knock on a closed door all night. You can let karma soften by refusing to repeat the old reaction. This is why the first part of our journey is simply seeing the pattern. Before you can release a burden, you must know how you pick it up. Before sleep can come, the mind must feel that it no longer has to guard the wound. Before peace enters, awareness must turn on the soft light of recognition. Look closely without blame. What returns most often when the room is quiet? Is it a person, a mistake, a moment when you felt unseen? A future you fear will fall apart, a version of yourself you think you failed to become? Do not rush to answer. Let the question rest beside you like a smooth stone in your palm. You are not being asked to solve your entire life before sunrise. You are only being invited to notice the shape of the chain, link by link, breath by breath, until it stops feeling invisible and begins to loosen naturally. A wise teacher once said that what we observe with compassion begins to change by itself. This does not mean every problem disappears. It means your identity is no longer trapped inside the problem. You are not the sleepless thought. You are the awareness noticing it. You are not the old karma. You are the spacious mind learning not to repeat it. You are not the voice that says you should have known better. You are the quiet presence that can place a blanket over that voice and say, "Rest now, you have spoken enough for one night." The next step is not to erase the past, but to stop letting it write tomorrow before you have slept. For now, feel the bed beneath you. Feel the room holding its stillness. Let the darkness be safe, not empty. Let the breath move in and out like a tide along a quiet shore. Somewhere inside you, the wheel can slow. Somewhere beneath the old story, there is a deeper silence that has never been harmed. Tonight, we will walk toward that silence gently, and in the next teaching, you will see why karma is not punishment, but pattern ready to change. Here and now, as the room remains quiet and your body rests where it is, let the next understanding come softly, like moonlight entering through a half-closed curtain. The pattern that has followed you into the night is not a sentence carved into stone. It is not a cosmic punishment waiting beside your bed. It is not proof that you are doomed to repeat the same sadness forever. In the old teachings, karma means action, and action does not only mean what your hands have done. It also means the movement of intention, the small turning of thought, the way the heart reaches toward a memory, the way the body tightens before the mind has spoken. Karma is not a judge. Karma is a trail. It is the worn path through the grass made by walking the same way again and again. At first, there was no path. There was only an open field. Then one difficult day, you walked through fear. Another day, you walked through regret. Another night, you walked through longing. Step by step, without meaning to. The grass bent beneath repetition, and now the mind follows that path because it is familiar. Familiar does not always mean peaceful. Sometimes familiar only means practiced. This is why you can be exhausted and still return to the same thought. The thought is not wise just because it is loud. The memory is not sacred just because it is persistent. The feeling is not destiny just because it comes back at midnight. It may simply be a path your nervous system has learned too well. So tonight, instead of asking why this is happening to you, we begin asking, what action is being repeated here? Not with blame, not with shame, only with the gentle curiosity of someone holding a lantern over an old road. Perhaps the repeated action is checking whether someone still cares. Perhaps it is defending yourself in a conversation that ended long ago. Perhaps it is imagining the future falling apart before it has had a chance to arrive. Perhaps it is quietly punishing yourself for a choice you made when you did not know what you know now. These are actions too. Silent actions, inner actions. They plant seeds in the soft soil of the mind, and every night you revisit them with fear, anger, or self-blame. The seed receives water. This does not mean you have done something wrong by suffering. Please hear that with tenderness. You are not being accused for being human. A person who hurts will naturally look for the source of the hurt. A person who has lost something will naturally reach toward what is missing. A person who felt unsafe will naturally scan the darkness for signs of danger. The Buddha did not teach awareness so we could hate ourselves for having thoughts. Awareness is the beginning of mercy. It lets us see the wheel without becoming the wheel. Imagine an old rocking chair on a porch in the late evening. Once it is pushed, it continues moving for a while, even after the hand that pushed it is gone. Your mind can be like that chair. A relationship, a disappointment, a harsh word, a season of loneliness may have pushed it months or years ago, yet the movement continues in small, rhythmic returns. Back and forth. What happened? What it meant? What you should have done? What they should have said? Back and forth. At night, the motion becomes easier to hear. But the chair is not moving because the past is still standing there pushing it. It is moving because momentum remains. This is a kind way to understand karma. Momentum, habit energy, emotional weather that keeps traveling after the storm has passed. And if it is momentum, then it can slow. If it is habit energy, then it can be met with a different habit. If it is a pattern, then a new pattern can begin, not through force, but through repeated kindness. Tonight, a new action may be very small. You feel the old thought rising, and instead of following it for another mile, you notice it. You breathe. You let your shoulders release. You say within yourself, "This is a pattern, not a command." Then you return to the bed beneath you, the blanket over you, the quiet room around you. That one return matters. It may seem too small to change anything, but every trail begins with one step in a different direction. Every field begins to heal when it is no longer crossed the same way. You do not have to believe this perfectly. You only have to practice it gently. There is a Zen story about a student who came to a teacher carrying a small bowl filled with muddy water. The student said, "Master, I have tried to make this water clear, but every time I touch it, it becomes worse." The teacher looked at the bowl and said, "Then set it down." The student frowned, because the answer seemed too simple. "If I set it down, how will it become clear?" The teacher smiled and said, "Mud settles when no one keeps stirring it." The student placed the bowl on a wooden table and waited. Slowly, grain by grain, the mud sank toward the bottom, and the water above became clear enough to reflect the sky. Your mind tonight may be like that bowl. You have been trying to fix the water with the same hand that keeps stirring it. You ask more questions. You replay more scenes. You search for more proof. You press harder on the wound of uncertainty, hoping pressure will create peace. But the teaching is not asking you to abandon wisdom. It is asking you to stop stirring what can only settle through stillness. Karma changes when the action changes. If the old action is mental stirring, the new action is allowing. If the old action is self-blame, the new action is compassion. If the old action is chasing an answer that will not arrive tonight, the new action is resting without the answer. This is not giving up. This is giving the muddy water permission to clear. Notice how the body responds to that possibility. Maybe the breath deepens a little. Maybe the forehead softens. Maybe the muscles around the eyes no longer need to search the darkness for a solution. In American life, people are often taught that every problem must be handled immediately. Every emotion must be named, processed, improved, and turned into progress before morning. But the soul does not always heal on a schedule. Some healing happens the way dawn comes, gradually, without being pulled. Some peace arrives only after you stop trying to earn it. The pattern that keeps you awake may tell you that rest is irresponsible, that if you sleep, you are ignoring something important. But listen carefully. Worry has never been the same as love. Rumination has never been the same as wisdom. Staying awake to revisit pain is not the same as honoring what happened. Sometimes the most respectful thing you can do for your own life is allow the body to recover. A tired heart cannot see clearly. A sleepless mind often mistakes shadows for truth. Rest is not avoidance when the night has done all it can do. Rest is a sacred pause between the old reaction and the new one. So let this teaching settle. Karma is not punishment. It is pattern. Pattern is not prison. It is practice repeated. Practice can change when awareness enters. Awareness enters through moments exactly like this one. When you are lying still, breathing slowly, and realizing that you do not have to become the same person inside the same thought again. You may not be able to stop every memory from appearing, but you can stop bowing to every memory as if it owns the room. You may not be able to erase the old path tonight, but you can choose not to deepen it with another hour of fearful walking. The open field is still there beneath the worn trail. The clear water is still there beneath the mud. The quiet mind is still there beneath the motion. Place one hand wherever your body feels tense, perhaps over the heart, perhaps over the stomach, perhaps resting loosely at your side. Let the hand be warm and ordinary. Let it remind you that you are here, in this room, on this night, in this body, not trapped inside the year when the pain began. Whisper inwardly, I see the pattern. I do not need to hate it. I do not need to feed it. I can meet it with a different breath. And after that breath, take another. Let the new action be simple enough that the tired mind can accept it. No dramatic vow, no promise to be fully healed by sunrise. Just this: when the old wheel turns, you will notice the turning. When the mud rises, you will set the bowl down. When the path calls, you will remember the field. And in the next teaching, you will see how much of your suffering comes not from the first pain, but from the second arrow you keep placing inside your own heart. Now the room is quieter than before, and the teaching has begun to settle like clear water after the bowl has been placed on the table. You are still here, held by the bed, held by the darkness, held by the simple fact that this moment is not asking you to fix your whole life. The breath moves in and out. The old pattern may still be nearby, like a road you know too well, but you have already seen something important. A pattern is not a prison. A thought is not a command. A memory is not the master of the room. And now, gently, we come to one of the most compassionate teachings in Buddhism, the teaching of the two arrows. It begins with something very human. In life, pain happens. Plans change. People leave. Words are misunderstood. Bodies grow tired. Love does not always arrive in the form we hoped for. Someone may disappoint you. You may disappoint yourself. A door may close before you feel ready. This first pain is part of being alive. It is not a failure. It is not proof that you are spiritually behind. It is the first arrow, the unavoidable contact between a tender heart and an impermanent world. But then, after the first pain, the mind often creates a second pain. It says, this should not have happened. I should have known better. I must be unworthy. I will never be safe again. They ruined everything. I ruined everything. Why did I not see it coming? Why am I still feeling this? Why can everyone else move on while I am still lying here in the dark? This second pain is the second arrow. It is not the event itself. It is the story, the blame, the resistance, the self-punishment, the endless replay. The first arrow may have touched your life months ago, or years ago, or earlier today in a kitchen, in a car, in an office, in a message you read on a glowing screen. But the second arrow is often placed again and again in the quiet hours, when the lights are off and no one can see how hard the mind is working to protect itself from a wound that has already happened. Tonight, this teaching is not here to accuse you. It is here to set you free from what is extra. Pain asks to be held. The second arrow asks to be noticed. There is a difference. If someone left, that is pain. If your mind says you were never lovable, that is the second arrow. If you made a mistake, that is pain. If your mind says you are nothing but your mistake, that is the second arrow. If life changed in a way you did not want, that is pain. If your mind says peace is no longer possible for you, that is the second arrow. Can you feel how heavy the second one becomes? It can turn a moment into an identity. It can turn a memory into a nightly ritual. It can turn one heartbreak into a belief about your whole future. And because the second arrow often sounds like truth, the mind obeys it. The body tightens. The breath becomes shallow. The pillow feels less like a place of rest and more like a small island surrounded by unfinished thoughts. But you do not need to fight the second arrow. Fighting it is just another form of holding it. You only need to see it clearly. Awareness is the hand that does not grip. Awareness says, this is pain, and this is the story I added to pain. This is what happened, and this is what I keep doing to myself afterward. This is the wound, and this is the echo. Let that distinction arrive slowly. There is no rush. Let it move through the body like warm tea. Perhaps you can remember something that has been returning at night. Not the whole story, not every detail, just the shape of it. Notice the first arrow. What actually happened? A conversation ended. A promise changed. A person did not respond. A dream did not unfold the way you imagined. A version of the future disappeared. Now notice the second arrow. What did the mind add? Did it add shame? Did it add fear? Did it add a prediction? Did it add the belief that you are behind in life? Did it add the thought that you should have been stronger, smarter, calmer, younger, more attractive, more successful, easier to love, harder to leave? Breathe softly here. None of these added stories need to be answered tonight. They only need to be recognized as additions. A cloud may cover the moon, but it does not become the moon. A thought may cover your peace, but it does not become your deepest nature. The second arrow loses power when you stop calling it reality. There was once a tired traveler who arrived at a small monastery after walking many miles through cold evening air. He told the old teacher that he could not sleep because everywhere he went, he carried the same pain. The teacher gave him a cup of water and asked him to hold it out at arm length. At first, the traveler said it was easy. After a minute, his shoulder began to ache. After several minutes, his hand trembled. Finally, he begged to put it down. The teacher asked, "Did the cup become heavier?" The traveler said, "No, I only held it too long." The teacher nodded and said, "So it is with many sorrows. Their weight grows from how long we hold them without rest." Tonight, you may not be able to empty the cup completely, but you can lower your arm. You can stop proving how much you have suffered by carrying the thought until morning. You can place it beside you for a while. Not throw it away, not deny it, just set it down. This is the middle way of healing. It does not pretend nothing happened, and it does not worship the pain, as if pain were the only honest thing left. It allows tenderness without becoming trapped in the story tenderness carries. In modern life, especially in America, many people live with a hidden pressure to make every wound productive. You are told to learn from it, grow from it, become stronger because of it, turn it into wisdom, turn it into purpose, turn it into a better version of yourself. There is truth in growth, but there is also exhaustion in constantly transforming pain before you have rested. Sometimes the first wisdom is simply this: I am tired, and I can be kind to myself while I am tired. I can let the lesson wait until morning. I can stop turning my bed into a courtroom where every memory is brought forward as evidence against me. What would happen if tonight were not a trial? What would happen if the darkness were not asking for a verdict? What would happen if the silence around you were not empty, but merciful? Let your body receive that possibility. The second arrow often depends on tension. It needs a tight chest, a clenched jaw, a mind that keeps leaning forward into the past or the future. So soften the places where the arrow tries to live. Let the tongue rest. Let the forehead smooth. Let the belly move naturally with breath. Even 1 inch of softness is a new karma. Even one moment of not attacking yourself plants a new seed. You may say inwardly, "This is the first pain, and I honor it. This is the second pain, and I release my need to repeat it." Say it slowly if it helps. This is the first pain, and I honor it. This is the second pain, and I release my need to repeat it. Do not force yourself to believe it completely. Let the words be like gentle rain on dry ground. Some soil takes time to open. Some seeds awaken slowly. The mind may still return to the old story, because that is what it has practiced. When it does, do not create a third arrow by judging yourself for having the second. That is important. You do not need to suffer because you are suffering. You do not need to be anxious because anxiety appeared. You do not need to be ashamed because shame rose in the chest. Awareness can hold all of it, without turning any of it into who you are. If sadness comes, sadness is here. If regret comes, regret is here. If longing comes, longing is here. The words are simple, but the practice is profound. You are learning to name the weather without becoming the weather. You are learning to notice the arrow without reaching for it again. You are learning that rest does not require a perfect mind. Rest requires permission. And perhaps that is the permission you have been waiting for. Permission to stop revisiting the same scene. Permission to stop asking the night to solve what only time, clarity, and compassion can soften. Permission to be a human being who was hurt, who reacted, who carried too much, and who can now begin to carry less. Let the cup lower. Let the muddy water remain undisturbed. Let the road through the old field rest under moonlight. The breath is still here. The bed is still holding you. The present moment has not abandoned you, even when the mind wandered far away. And as this teaching settles, you may begin to sense that the past is not asking you to keep hurting yourself in its name. The first arrow was enough. You do not have to offer the second one another night of your life. Soon, we will turn toward a simple Zen image, an empty boat drifting through memory, and you will see why so much anger and grief soften when you realize there may be no one left inside the thing you keep fighting. Ucha now, as the second arrow begins to loosen in the quiet room, let your attention drift toward a river at night. The water is dark, but not frightening. It moves slowly under the silver light of the moon, carrying leaves, reflections, and small ripples away from the shore. Imagine that you are sitting in a simple wooden boat, not far from land, resting your hands in your lap, letting the current guide you. You are tired from carrying old thoughts. You are not trying to be brave. You are only trying to be honest enough to rest. Then, from the mist, another boat drifts near. It touches the side of yours with a sudden sound, not harsh, but surprising enough to wake your body. For a moment, irritation rises. Who is steering that boat? Why did they not watch where they were going? Why does this always happen? The mind prepares a speech before the eyes have understood the scene. Then you look closer. There is no one inside. The boat is empty. It has only been moved by the current. In that moment, the whole story changes. The touch still happened. Your boat still moved. Your body still reacted. But there is no person there to accuse, no face to argue with, no hidden intention to discover. The boat is empty, and because it is empty, the mind has nothing to hold. This is one of the gentlest Zen images for a restless heart. So much of what keeps you awake at night is an empty boat in memory. Something touched your life, and because it hurt, the mind placed someone inside it again and again. It gave the moment a driver. It gave the silence a motive. It gave the delay the ending. The misunderstanding, or the absence of voice that keeps speaking in the dark. You may still be answering a message that will never arrive. You may still be explaining yourself to a person who is no longer listening. You may still be asking an old season why it unfolded the way it did. But tonight, perhaps for the first time, You can look closer. Is anyone truly inside that boat now? Or is it only a memory drifting through the current of the mind? This does not mean your pain was imaginary. The touch was real. The surprise was real. The sadness, confusion, disappointment, and longing were real. Buddhism does not ask you to pretend the boat never touched yours. It only asks whether you must keep filling it with a person every time it returns. The event may be over. The person may have changed. You may have changed. Even the meaning of what happened may have changed many times, depending on how tired, lonely, hopeful, or afraid you felt when you remembered it. Yet the mind, especially at night, wants certainty. It wants to say, they did this to me, life did this to me, I did this to myself, and therefore I must stay awake until I understand it completely. But the river does not answer in that language. The river only moves. The current carries what is empty and what is full, what is remembered and what is released. Feel your breath now as that current. It does not need to explain itself. It comes in. It goes out. It returns without asking whether you deserve another breath. Let the body learn from that kindness. Maybe there is a face that appears when your eyes close. Maybe there is a tone of voice you still hear. Maybe there is a version of yourself standing in an old room, wishing you had known how to respond with more calm, more wisdom, more self-respect. Notice the boat. Notice how quickly the mind places someone inside it. Notice the sentence that begins to form. They should have. I should have. This should not have. Then pause. Not to deny the story, but to soften your grip on it. Say inwardly, perhaps this is an empty boat now. Perhaps I do not need to climb into it tonight. Perhaps I can let it drift past without making it my home. This is the practice of release. It is not dramatic. It is not a performance. It is not proving that you are above pain. It is the quiet recognition that some memories continue to move only because you keep stepping into them. There was once a woman who came to a Zen teacher because every night she replayed a conversation with her brother. It had happened during a difficult family gathering many years before. No one had raised a hand. No one had meant to ruin her life. But a few words had entered her heart like cold rain, and she had carried them ever since. She told the teacher, "I want him to understand what he did." The teacher asked, "Where is he now?" She said, "Hundreds of miles away, living his own life." The teacher asked, "And where does the conversation happen now?" She closed her eyes and said, "In my mind." The teacher nodded and said, "Then you are sitting alone in a room, speaking to an empty chair, hoping the chair will apologize." The woman began to cry, not because she was ashamed, but because she finally saw how lonely the pattern had become. She was not only hurt by what had happened, she was exhausted from keeping the scene alive, without anyone else present. The teacher did not tell her to excuse the words. He did not tell her to force forgiveness. He only said, "Each night, when the chair appears, bow to it and leave the room." This is enough at first. Bow to the memory. Leave the room. You can try this in your own quiet way. When the empty boat arrives, you do not need to push it away. You do not need to chase it down the river. You do not need to prove that it has no right to float near you. Just notice it. Bow inwardly, not to the pain itself, but to the lesson it has been trying to reveal. Then return to the boat you are actually sitting in now. This body, this bed, this room, this breath. So many people lose sleep because they are living in boats that are no longer here. An old job, an old relationship, an old mistake, an old version of family, an old image of who they thought they would become by this age. The body lies in the present, but the mind rows backward through years of emotional weather. No wonder you feel tired. No wonder the eyes burn, the jaw tightens, and the heart feels as if it has been working after midnight. You have been traveling farther than you realized. Come back 1 inch. That is all. Come back to the pillow. Come back to the weight of the blanket. Come back to the faint sounds of the house, the hum of air, the softness around you. The empty boat can drift. You do not have to drift with it. In Buddhist wisdom, clinging often begins when we mistake movement for meaning. A thought moves through awareness, and we assume it must be important. A memory returns, and we assume it must need solving. A feeling rises, and we assume it must be obeyed. But rivers carry many things. Not everything that floats by is a message. Some things are simply passing through. Tonight, let that be enough. Let the face pass. Let the scene pass. Let the imagined conversation pass. If the mind says, "But I need closure," answer gently. Perhaps closure is not forcing the boat to explain itself. Perhaps closure is realizing it is empty now. Perhaps closure is the moment I stop giving my whole night to something that no longer has anyone inside it. Feel how spacious that is. The old reaction tightens around a story. The new response opens around reality. Reality is simple tonight. You are here. The room is quiet. The body is tired. The breath is available. The memory is moving, but it is not in charge. Place your attention on one slow inhale and one slow exhale. Imagine the river widening. Imagine your boat becoming steady. You do not need the other boat to disappear before you can rest. You only need to stop treating it as the captain of your mind. The current knows how to carry empty things away when you no longer tie yourself to them. Let the rope loosen. Let the knot soften. Let the old scene lose its stage. And if it returns later tonight, meet it with the same quiet wisdom. Empty boat, old current, passing weather, not my home. This is not coldness. This is mercy. Mercy for the tired mind that has argued long enough. Mercy for the heart that deserves more than endless rehearsal. Mercy for the body that has waited patiently while you tried to solve a vanished conversation in the dark. As the river continues, as the room deepens, as your breath moves softly through this present moment, begin to sense that some burdens lose their power not because they are defeated, but because they are seen clearly. An empty boat does not need your whole life. A memory without a present driver does not need another hour of your sleep. Soon, we will turn toward the karma of attachment, the kind that disguises itself as love, and you will begin to see why some things stay in the mind, not because they are meant to stay, but because a closed hand has forgotten how to open. Now, as the image of the empty boat drifts farther down the quiet river, let your awareness return gently to the hand that has been holding on. Not the physical hand resting on the blanket, but the inner hand, the part of the heart that closes around a person, a memory, a possibility, or a version of life and says, "This must stay with me." Attachment is not always loud. It does not always look like desperation. Sometimes it appears as tenderness. Sometimes it sounds like loyalty. Sometimes it feels like love, because it uses the language of devotion, while quietly carrying fear underneath. This is why it can be so difficult to recognize at night. You may believe you are awake because you miss someone, and perhaps you do. Missing is human. Missing is soft. Missing is the heart remembering connection. But attachment is different. Attachment says, "I cannot be peaceful unless this person returns. I cannot rest unless I know what they think of me. I cannot breathe freely unless the story ends the way I wanted it to end." Love opens the hand. Attachment tightens it. Love allows the other person to be real, changing, imperfect, beyond your control. Attachment turns the other person into the key to your inner peace, and then leaves you searching for that key in the dark. Breathe slowly here, because this is tender ground. No one needs to be blamed for being attached. A lonely heart will reach. A hurt heart will cling to what once felt warm. A mind that has known uncertainty will try to make another person into certainty. This does not make you weak. It means somewhere inside, a younger, tired, protective part of you believed holding on would prevent another loss. But in the old teachings, clinging is one of the roots of suffering, not because love is wrong, but because the mind mistakes possession for safety. It says, if I can keep this person in my thoughts, I have not fully lost them. If I replay the memory, the door is not completely closed. If I imagine what they might say, then silence is not truly silence. And so the mind stays awake, not because the night is dangerous, but because it has mistaken remembering for keeping. There is a quiet sadness in this. You are not only remembering someone, you are trying to keep a connection alive inside your nervous system, even if the connection in the outer world has changed. This is why the body can feel restless when nothing is happening. The phone is on the nightstand. The room is still. The street outside may be silent, yet inside, the hand remains closed. It keeps holding the old message, the old glance, the old plan, the old version of the future. It keeps holding what was said, what was not said, what you wish had been said. And the longer the hand stays closed, the more tired it becomes. Try this gently in your own body. Make a soft fist for a moment, not hard, just enough to feel the shape of holding. Notice how quickly the muscles understand effort. Now imagine holding that same fist for hours, for days, for years, around something that cannot be protected by gripping. This is what attachment does to the heart. It turns memory into muscle tension. It turns longing into posture. It turns the past into a small object you carry everywhere, even into bed. Now soften the hand. Let the fingers uncurl. Feel how release does not require hatred. You do not have to hate what you loved in order to open your hand. You do not have to declare that it meant nothing. You do not have to erase the beauty, to stop being ruled by the ache. This is one of the deepest differences between Buddhist wisdom and the ordinary mind. The ordinary mind says, either I hold on or I lose everything. Wisdom says, what is truly meaningful does not need to be clutched until it hurts. A flower does not become more fragrant because you crush it in your palm. A song does not become more beautiful because you keep pressing repeat long after the heart is exhausted. A memory does not become more sacred because you sacrifice your sleep to it night after night. There was once a young man who came to a teacher after a relationship had ended. He said, I cannot let go because my love was real. The teacher handed him a small cup filled with tea and asked him to hold it. The young man held it carefully. Then the teacher poured more tea into the cup, and the tea began to spill over the rim. The young man said, Master, it is full. The teacher continued pouring until the tea ran over his fingers. Finally, the young man pulled the cup away. The teacher said, the cup did not reject the tea. It simply could not receive more because it was already full. Your heart is the same. When it is filled with one story, one person, one ending, one idea of how life was supposed to unfold, it cannot receive the quiet blessings still trying to enter. Letting go is not saying the tea was worthless. It is making space for the cup to be held without overflowing. Tonight, perhaps your heart is full of one story. It may be a romantic story, or a family story, or a friendship, or a dream that did not become real. It may even be an attachment to who you were before life changed. Some attachments are not to people, but to identity. You may be clinging to the version of yourself who trusted easily, who felt chosen, who believed things would turn out one certain way. When that version disappears, the mind grieves as if a person has left the room. So be gentle. The attachment may be more layered than you first thought. You are not only missing them, you may be missing who you were when hope still looked simple. You may be missing the future you imagined in such detail that it felt like a place you had already moved into. When the future disappears, it leaves furniture in the mind. The bed that would have been shared, the kitchen where morning coffee would have been made, the road trips that were never taken, the holidays that never arrived, the ordinary Tuesday evenings that existed only in imagination. No wonder the heart feels confused. It is grieving a life that was never fully lived, but was deeply felt. Buddhist teachings call us back from this imagined house, not with cruelty, but with truth. The imagined house is not where your body is sleeping tonight. The body is here, the breath is here, the real room is here, and reality, even when painful, is the only place where peace can enter. Attachment keeps leading you into rooms that do not exist anymore, or never existed at all. Mindfulness opens the door of the room you are actually in. Feel this room. Feel the bed. Feel the air touching your skin. Feel the soft darkness. Here there is nothing to chase. Here no one needs to answer. Here the hand can rest. When attachment appears, it often says, "I need them." But if you listen more deeply, beneath that sentence there may be another sentence. I need comfort. I need safety. I need to feel chosen. I need to feel that my love was not foolish. I need to know I did not waste my heart. These are human needs, and they deserve compassion. But notice the difference. The person may not be available to meet those needs tonight. The memory cannot hold you. The imagined conversation cannot soothe your nervous system for long. But your awareness can begin to meet the need directly. If the need is comfort, place a hand over your chest and offer warmth. If the need is safety, remind the body that this moment is quiet. If the need is worth, speak inwardly as you would speak to someone you love. You are not foolish for having loved. You are not less worthy because someone changed, left, misunderstood, or could not meet you with the care you hoped for. Your value was never stored inside their response. Let that sentence move slowly through the body. Your value was never stored inside their response. The closed hand may tremble as it opens, because it has held this belief for a long time. Let it tremble. Opening does not always feel peaceful at first. Sometimes release feels like sadness before it becomes freedom. Sometimes the hand aches when it stops gripping. That does not mean you should close it again. It means the muscles of the heart are learning a new shape. This is new karma being born, not through grand effort, but through a different relationship with longing. The old karma says, "I must hold this to survive." The new karma says, "I can honor this and still rest." The old karma says, "Without this person, I am incomplete." The new karma says, "Something in me is hurting, and I can care for that hurt without handing my whole night to it." The old karma says, "If I stop thinking about them, the love was not real." The new karma says, "Real love does not require self-abandonment." Pause there. Real love does not require self-abandonment. If the mind resists this, do not argue. Let the word sit near you like a candle. The flame does not chase the darkness, it simply shines. In the same way, awareness does not need to chase attachment away. It only needs to illuminate what attachment has been doing. It has been asking another person to become your ground. It has been asking memory to become your shelter. It has been asking the past to become a home you can sleep inside. But the ground is here, under you. The shelter is this present breath. The home is the awareness that remains even when people come and go, even when seasons change, even when the heart learns through loss. Tonight, let the closed hand open one finger at a time. You do not need to drop everything all at once. Begin with the need to know. Release one question. Begin with the need to be chosen by someone who is absent. Offer yourself one moment of choosing yourself. Begin with the need to revisit the imagined house. Return to the real room. The blanket is real. The breath is real. The tiredness is real. And because they are real, they can be met. Attachment lives in what might have been. Peace begins in what is. Let the river carry the empty boat. Let the cup stop overflowing. Let the flower remain beautiful without being crushed in your palm. Let the one you loved, the one you lost, the one you cannot fully understand, move back into the wide mystery of life, where all beings change. And let yourself return from the edge of that mystery to the simplicity of this night. You are allowed to sleep even if you still care. You are allowed to rest even if a part of you still misses what was. You are allowed to be whole before every answer arrives. As the hand softens, the heart may discover that letting go is not the end of love. It is the end of using love as a reason to abandon your own peace. Soon, we will move into the karma of unforgiveness, the quiet burden that keeps many people awake, and you will see how resentment, guilt, and old sorrow begin to dissolve when the heart no longer wishes to live in the room of what cannot be changed. Peek now, as the hand of attachment opens a little more in the quiet room. Another burden may begin to reveal itself beneath the surface. Sometimes, when the mind finally stops chasing what it misses, it discovers what it has been carrying against itself, or against someone else. This burden is unforgiveness. It may not always announce itself as anger. Sometimes it feels like heaviness in the chest. Sometimes it feels like a sentence you keep repeating without sound. They should have known. I should have done better. Life should have been kinder. I cannot believe this happened. I cannot believe I allowed it. I cannot believe I am still not free. In the darkness, unforgiveness can feel like a form of protection. The mind says, if I keep remembering the hurt, I will not let it happen again. If I stay upset, I am honoring the pain. If I forgive, it means what happened was acceptable. If I soften, it means I have lost. But Buddhist wisdom invites a gentler, deeper understanding. Forgiveness is not agreement. Forgiveness is not pretending the wound was not real. Forgiveness is not inviting harm back into your life. And it is not making excuses for anyone. Forgiveness, in the quiet language of the heart, is the moment you stop using your own body as a container for yesterday's fire. It is the moment you realize that resentment asks you to keep paying interest on a debt the past can no longer collect. Breathe slowly here. No one is asking you to forgive before you are ready. No one is asking you to become peaceful by force. We are only looking at the burden with enough honesty to see what it costs. Unforgiveness often begins with a real injury to the heart. Someone disappointed you. Someone misunderstood you. Someone left you with silence when you needed care. Or perhaps the person you cannot forgive is yourself. Perhaps you keep returning to an old choice, an old reaction, an old season when you did not have the strength or clarity you wish you had now. The mind keeps saying, how could I have done that? How could I have stayed so long? How could I have trusted? How could I have missed the signs? These questions feel like investigation, but at night they often become punishment disguised as wisdom. They do not open a door. They circle the same locked room. Tonight, let the room become softer. Let the question change from, who is guilty, to, what is still hurting? Under resentment, there is often grief. Under self-blame, there is often a younger self who did not know what else to do. Under the need for an apology, there is often a heart that wants its pain to be seen. Can you let that heart be seen by you, even if no one else comes to witness it tonight? Place one hand over the area that feels most burdened, not as a technique to fix yourself, but as a quiet sign of companionship. You are not abandoning yourself anymore. You are here. The room is here. The breath is here. There is an old teaching often described with the image of holding a burning coal, hoping another person will feel the heat. The image is simple, and the lesson is clear. Resentment burns first in the hand that holds it. But let us soften that image for this night. Imagine not a flame of harm, but a small ember of pain carried in a clay bowl. You have carried it carefully for a long time, because it seemed important not to forget. You protected it from rain. You shielded it from wind. You brought it into every new room, every new relationship, every quiet hour before sleep. You thought keeping it alive meant you were respecting what happened. But now you are so tired from carrying the bowl. Your arms ache. Your sleep has become shallow. Your mind keeps checking whether the ember is still glowing. And somewhere inside, a wise part of you asks, am I ready to stop warming my whole life around this sorrow? You do not need to throw the bowl away. You can set it down beside the river. You can let the night air cool it. You can let the earth hold what your nervous system was never meant to hold forever. This is the beginning of forgiveness, not a declaration, not a performance, a setting down. There was once a woman who came to a quiet temple because she could not sleep after many years of blaming herself. She told the old teacher that every night she remembered a decision she had made when she was afraid and lonely. She said, I should have known. I should have been wiser. I should have protected my heart. The teacher listened without interruption. Then he took a small candle and placed it on the table between them. He said, when this candle was first lit, it gave only the light it had. It could not brighten the whole valley. It could not become the morning sun. It could only shine according to its small flame. The woman said nothing. The teacher continued, the person you were back then had only the light available at that time. Why do you condemn a small candle for not being the sun? The woman began to weep, because the words entered a place that argument had never reached. She had been judging an older version of herself, with the awareness she had only gained after suffering. Many people do this in the dark. They take the wisdom born from pain and use it against the version of themselves who had to live before that wisdom arrived. This is another form of the second arrow. You did not know then what you know now. You did not have the same boundaries, the same language, the same steadiness, the same support, the same distance from the situation. You had the light you had. Can you, just for tonight, stop asking the candle to have been the sun? Let that question rest in you. If regret appears, meet it with tenderness. Regret can be a teacher when it is held gently. It becomes a prison when it is fed with self-hatred. The new karma begins when regret no longer turns into punishment, but into humility, compassion, and a quieter way of living. If resentment toward another person appears, hold it with the same care. You do not need to erase your boundaries to soften your heart. You can say, what happened was painful, and I no longer need to live inside the pain. You can say, I may never receive the apology I wanted, and still I can stop rehearsing my case before sleep. You can say, I do not have to invite anyone back into my life in order to release them from my nervous system. This is important. Forgiveness does not always mean reunion. Sometimes forgiveness means the door remains closed, but your body no longer stands guard in front of it all night. Sometimes forgiveness means you stop drinking from the cup of bitterness while waiting for someone else to understand why you are thirsty. Sometimes forgiveness means you accept that the past cannot become kinder, but the way you hold it now can become more merciful. Feel the body respond to this. Perhaps a small part of you resists. Let it resist gently. That resistance once tried to protect you. Thank it quietly. You can say inwardly, I know you were trying to keep me safe. I know you thought anger would guard the wound. I know you thought guilt would make sure I never repeated the same mistake. But we are tired now. We need another way. The other way is not forgetting. It is remembering without becoming tight. It is learning without becoming cruel. It is protecting your peace without needing to keep the wound awake. Take one slow breath and imagine the clay bowl being set down by the riverbank. The ember is still there, but it is no longer in your hands. The night air touches it. The ground receives its weight. Your arms are free to rest. Your chest does not need to tighten around it. You may feel sadness, because sometimes we become attached even to our suffering. Pain can become familiar. It can become a place where we know who we are. If I am the one who was wronged, I know my role. If I am the one who failed, I know my sentence. But freedom asks a deeper courage. Who would you be if you did not have to carry this identity into every night? Who would you be if the story were part of your path, but not the name of your soul? You do not have to answer now. Let sleep answer in its own language. Let rest show the body that life continues beyond the room of blame. In the stillness, bring to mind the person you have blamed, even if that person is yourself. But do it lightly, as if seeing a shape far across the water. Do not walk toward it. Do not argue. Do not explain. Simply say within yourself, I release my need to keep hurting over this tonight. Not forever if forever feels too large. Just tonight. I release my need to keep hurting over this tonight. If the mind says, but they do not deserve it, answer gently. This release is not for their comfort. It is for the tired places inside me that deserve rest. If the mind says, but I do not deserve it, answer. Every being deserves the chance to stop repeating pain once awareness has arrived. Let the words be quiet. Let them be imperfect. Forgiveness is not a switch. It is a practice of not returning the hand to the ember. It may need to happen many times. Each time, the old karma loses a little force. Each time, a new groove is formed in the mind. Each time, the heart learns that it can protect wisdom without carrying bitterness. Now feel the bed again. Feel the shape of the pillow, the blanket, the dark room, the simple safety of this hour. The past may still exist as memory, but it does not need to be tonight's home. The old courtroom can close. The evidence can rest. The judge inside the mind can lay down the gavel and become a tired human being who simply needs peace. Let the breath move slowly, in and out, like the river accepting everything without holding anything still. The empty boat has passed. The closed hand has opened a little. The ember has been set down. And soon, in the next teaching, we will learn how to stop feeding old patterns tonight, not through force, but through one clear breath, one gentle phrase, and one new response that can begin to change the whole direction of the inner path. Chi now. With the old courtroom quieting and the ember resting beside the river, instead of in your hands, the night becomes a little more spacious. Nothing has been forced. Nothing has been conquered. You have not needed to pretend that pain was small, or that memory was meaningless, or that your heart should already be finished with what it has carried. You have simply begun to see the pattern. You have seen the second arrow. You have seen the empty boat. You have felt the closed hand open one finger at a time. You have placed the ember down for this one night, and now comes the practice that can change the direction of the inner path. Not in a dramatic way, not with a grand promise, but with one clear breath repeated whenever the old energy asks to be fed again. The old pattern survives because it receives attention, emotion, belief, and repetition. Every time the same thought appears, and the mind follows it into the same hallway, the pattern becomes more familiar. Every time the same memory rises, and the body responds as if the moment is happening again, the nervous system deepens the groove. Every time fear speaks and you answer it as though it is wisdom, fear becomes louder. This is not your fault. It is how habit energy works. It is how karma becomes personal. It is how a thought becomes a road, and a road becomes the place the mind walks when it is tired. But tonight, you are learning that you do not have to walk the entire road just because the entrance appears. The doorway may open. The memory may call. The old feeling may move through the chest, the stomach, the throat, or behind the eyes. But awareness can pause before stepping in. That pause is sacred. It may last only one breath, but one breath can be enough to interrupt years of unconscious movement. Imagine standing at the edge of that worn path through the field. The moon is above you. The grass is silver. The old path is visible because you have walked it many times, perhaps toward regret, toward resentment, toward longing, toward a person whose absence became larger at night, toward a question that never gave you peace. You do not need to hate the path. It was made by a version of you trying to survive. It was made by footsteps that did not know another way. Bow to that version of yourself. Thank them for getting you here. Then look beside the path. There is open grass. There is another direction. At first, no clear trail appears. It may feel uncertain. The old way is familiar, and the new way feels too simple to trust. But all new karma begins this way, with a quiet step where no path has yet been formed. The first step is to name what is happening without becoming it. If the thought comes, say gently, thinking is here. If sadness comes, say sadness is here. If the body tightens, say fear is moving through the body. If the image of someone returns, say memory is visiting. These phrases are small, but they create space. Instead of saying, I am ruined, you say, pain is here. Instead of saying, I cannot sleep because of them, you say, longing is here. Instead of saying, I will never be free, you say, the old pattern is speaking. Notice the difference. One sentence locks you inside the storm. The other lets you stand under a roof and listen to the rain. The rain may continue, but you are no longer made of rain. This is the power of mindful naming. It is not cold. It is not detached in a harsh way. It is deeply compassionate because it stops the mind from turning every passing state into your identity. The second step is to return to the body, because the body is always closer to the present than the story is. The story may be 10 years old, or 10 months old, or 10 minutes old. The body is here now. Feel the mattress supporting you. Feel the blanket resting over you. Feel the weight of your head on the pillow. Feel the air enter through the nose, move into the chest, and leave without needing to be kept. If your mind wants something more complicated, let it want that. The practice remains simple. You are teaching the nervous system that this moment is not the old moment. You are teaching the heart that it can feel an echo without returning to the original room. You are teaching the mind that safety does not come from solving every thought, but from touching reality again and again. There was once a monk who lived near a small bell tower on the edge of a quiet village. Every evening, when the bell sounded, the villagers stopped what they were doing for one breath. A baker paused with flour on his hands. A mother paused while folding clothes. A farmer paused beside the road. A child paused with a wooden toy in the dirt. The bell did not change their problems. It did not harvest the fields, pay the bills, mend every disagreement, or answer every uncertainty. It simply reminded them to return. One night, a traveler asked the monk, "What power does that bell have if it solves nothing?" The monk smiled and said, "It solves the forgetting." This is what your breath can become tonight. A small bell inside the body. It may not solve the past. It may not make someone understand. It may not change the words that were spoken, the silence that followed, or the road that life took. But it solves the forgetting. It reminds you that you are here, not there. It reminds you that this breath is new, even if the thought is old. It reminds you that a pattern cannot continue without participation. So when the old karma asks for food tonight, feed it less. Not with violence, not with rejection, not with self-criticism, but by offering attention to something real. The old pattern says, replay the scene. The new response says, feel the breath. The old pattern says, check for proof. The new response says, relax the jaw. The old pattern says, blame yourself again. The new response says, place a hand on the heart. The old pattern says, imagine every possible future. The new response says, feel the blanket, feel the room, feel the body that only needs rest. This is not avoidance. It is choosing not to pour more water on the same seed. Some seeds have been watered by worry for years. Tonight, you begin watering peace. At first, peace may seem delicate. It may not feel as powerful as fear. Fear is dramatic. It arrives with urgency. It makes the body listen quickly. Peace is quieter. It does not grab you by the shoulders. It waits like a porch light. It waits like a chair by the window. It waits like warm tea cooling on a kitchen table after a long day. You have to choose to notice it, and the more you notice it, the more real it becomes. This is how new karma is made. Not by denying the old, but by repeating the new. Take one slow breath now, and let the mind hear a gentle phrase. This is old energy passing through. I do not need to feed it tonight. Let the words be plain. Let them be human. This is old energy passing through. I do not need to feed it tonight. If the phrase feels too large, make it smaller. Old pattern, soft breath, return. Again, old pattern, soft breath, return. Again, the simplicity is the medicine. A tired mind does not need 1,000 instructions. It needs a doorway back to now. Perhaps the old thought returns immediately. That is all right. The practice is not ruined. A thought returning is not failure. It is simply another chance to respond differently. The path changes because you return again, not because you never wander. The bell works because it rings again, not because the village never forgets. Let this be a kindness to yourself. You do not need perfect peace to begin. You only need one moment of remembering. If guilt appears, name it. If anger appears, name it. If longing appears, name it. Then feel the body. Then breathe. Then speak the phrase. This is old energy passing through. I do not need to feed it tonight. Over time, the mind begins to learn. It discovers that not every visitor receives a room. Not every memory receives your whole night. Not every fear receives your trust. Not every old road receives your footsteps. In Buddhist practice, this is the quiet transformation of intention. The same inner moment that once created suffering now becomes the place where freedom begins. The old intention was to control, explain, defend, relive, or repair. The new intention is to observe, soften, release, and return. Nothing outside may change immediately, but something inside begins to turn. That inner turning matters. It is the difference between being dragged by the river and learning to float. It is the difference between gripping the cup and setting it down. It is the difference between sitting in the empty chair of an old argument and bowing to the chair before leaving the room. Let the room around you become part of the practice. The darkness is not an enemy. It is a wide container. The silence is not abandonment. It is space. The bed is not where you come to wrestle with the past. It is where the body remembers that it belongs to life, not only to memory. Allow the eyes to rest behind closed lids. Allow the shoulders to sink. Allow the breath to be ordinary. You do not need to make the inhale deep. You do not need to make the exhale perfect. Let breathing breathe itself. This is one of the softest truths of meditation. Some things heal when you stop trying to hold them together. The breath has been moving all day without your control. The heart has continued. The body has carried you through roads, rooms, conversations, screens, meals, errands, and weather. Now let it carry you into rest. If an old pattern appears one more time, meet it as you would meet a tired child at the doorway, not with anger, but with calm direction. Not tonight, we are resting now. Not tonight, we are returning now. Not tonight, we are choosing peace. And if that feels too strong, simply say later. Not because the thought is forbidden, but because the night is not the place to keep feeding it. Later, when there is daylight, when the mind is clearer, when the body has slept, you may look at what needs looking. But tonight belongs to rest. Tonight belongs to the new action. Tonight belongs to the breath that does not argue with the past. Let the worn path rest under moonlight. Let the new grass receive one careful step. Let the old seed go without water for a little while. Somewhere within you, a different future is beginning quietly, not as a fantasy, not as a promise that life will never hurt again, but as the humble freedom of responding differently when pain visits. This is how a heavy pattern becomes lighter. This is how karma changes direction. This is how the mind learns that it can be aware without obeying, tender without clinging, honest without suffering more than necessary. Stay with the breath for one more moment. Old pattern, soft breath, return, again, and soon we will allow the past to return to the past, seeing how impermanence is not only the reason things leave, but also the reason old pain does not have to remain in the same shape forever. Pincha, now the old path has been left without water for a little while, and the breath has become the small bell that solves the forgetting. The room is still the same room. The bed is still holding the weight of your body. The darkness is still resting against the walls. Nothing outside has needed to change for something inside to become quieter. This is important because the mind often waits for the outer world to give permission for peace. It waits for a message, an explanation, an apology, a sign, a guarantee, a future where nothing uncertain remains. But the Dharma points toward a softer truth. Peace does not always begin when life answers. Sometimes peace begins when you stop asking the past to return in a form it can no longer take. Let this arrive slowly. The past cannot come back as it was. Not the person, not the season, not the exact feeling, not the version of yourself who stood there before the lesson arrived. Even if a conversation were repeated, it would not be the same conversation, because you are no longer the same listener. Even if someone came back, they would not return to the same heart. Because your heart has been shaped by waiting, learning, grieving, and surviving. Even if you could step into the old room again, the light would fall differently. The air would be different. You would be different. This is impermanence, not as a cold idea, but as a tender doorway. Everything changes. The painful thing changed, the person changed, the meaning changed, your body changed, your understanding changed. And because everything changes, the pain that once seemed permanent is also changing, even when the mind tries to preserve it in its original shape. The mind is a strange archivist. It keeps old scenes on a shelf and takes them down at night, believing it is preserving truth. It says, "Remember this exactly, so you never forget what happened. Remember their words. Remember your embarrassment. Remember the silence. Remember the hope you had before it broke. Remember how small you felt." But memory is not a photograph sealed in glass. Memory is a living river. Each time you enter it, the water is different. Your mood colors it. Your fear colors it. Your loneliness colors it. Your longing colors it. At midnight, an old memory can look darker than it truly is, because the body is tired and the room is quiet. In the morning, the same memory may feel different. This does not mean your pain is false. It means pain is moving. It means the past is not a stone in your chest. It is more like a cloud passing across the moon, changing shape while you watch it. You may have been treating the cloud as if it were a mountain. Tonight, let the mountain soften back into weather. There was once a monk who kept a cracked teacup beside his sleeping mat. A visitor noticed it and asked why he did not throw it away. The cup was old, the handle uneven, the surface marked by years of use. The monk lifted it gently and said, "To me, this cup is already broken." The visitor looked confused. The monk continued, "Because I know it will break someday, I can enjoy it without believing it must last forever. When it finally breaks, I will not be surprised by impermanence. I will be grateful that it held tea for a while." This story is often told as a lesson in letting go, but tonight, let it become more intimate. Perhaps there was something in your life that was already changing while you were still trying to make it permanent. A relationship, a role, a home, a dream, a belief about who you were supposed to become. You may have held it like a perfect cup, not knowing the crack had already begun. When it changed, you thought life had betrayed you. But perhaps life was showing you what had always been true. All cups are fragile. All seasons end. All people are traveling through their own changes, even when we wish they would remain familiar for our comfort. This is not meant to make you afraid. It is meant to make your holding gentler. When you know the cup is fragile, you do not clutch it harder. You hold it with more presence. And when it breaks, you do not have to break yourself with it. Let that sentence rest in the room. When something breaks, you do not have to break yourself with it. The past belongs to the past, not because it was unimportant, but because it has completed the part of its journey that could be lived in real time. What remains now is memory, meaning, lesson, tenderness, and the choice of how you meet it. The old karma keeps pain alive by pulling the past into the present and asking it to perform again. It says, "Feel this as if it is happening now. Defend yourself as if they are standing here now. Grieve as if the door has just closed now. Fear as if tomorrow has already failed now." But mindfulness places a soft hand on the mind and says, "Not now. That was then. This is here." The body may still carry echoes, but echoes are not the original sound. The heart may still ache, but ache is not a command to return. You can honor what happened without relocating your whole self there. This is one of the great mercies of impermanence. It gives every wound permission to become something else. At first, a wound may be raw pain. Later it becomes a question. Later still, it becomes insight. One day, it may become compassion for another person, sitting awake in their own dark room. You do not need to rush that transformation. You only need to stop freezing the wound in its first form. If tonight the mind says, "I will always feel this way," answer gently, "Nothing has ever stayed exactly the same." If the mind says, "This memory will always own me," answer, "Even ownership changes when awareness enters." If the mind says, "I cannot become peaceful until the past becomes different," answer, "The past cannot become different, but my relationship with it can." The river teaches this without words. You cannot step into the same river twice, because the water moves on, and you cannot step into the same sorrow twice, because you are moving too. The sorrow may look familiar, but the one who meets it tonight has already learned from the empty boat, the second arrow, the closed hand, the ember, and the breath that rings like a bell. You are not the same person who first suffered. You are the one now learning how not to repeat suffering unnecessarily. This recognition is powerful, but it does not need to be loud. It can be as quiet as feeling the blanket against your skin and knowing that this simple contact belongs to the present. It can be as quiet as hearing a distant car pass on a street somewhere outside and realizing that life continues beyond the room of memory. It can be as quiet as letting your tongue rest, letting the eyes soften, and letting the mind stop arranging old evidence. The present moment is not dramatic, which is why the anxious mind often ignores it. The present moment does not argue. It does not promise a perfect future. It does not explain every loss. It simply offers one breath, one surface beneath you, one chance to return. And that is enough for tonight. Imagine placing the old memory on a leaf at the edge of the river. You are not throwing it away. You are not saying it never mattered. You are giving it back to movement. The leaf floats, slowly at first, then a little farther. You may still see it. You may still feel tenderness. You may even feel the old urge to reach for it, because holding has been familiar. But let the river do what rivers do. Let life carry what your hands were never meant to carry forever. The leaf does not need your supervision. The current does not need your fear. The past does not need your sleeplessness in order to remain part of your story. It can be part of you without ruling you. It can teach you without lying beside you every night. It can be remembered without being relived. In this way, impermanence becomes kind. It does not only take things away, it also takes away the sharpest edges when we stop sharpening them with thought. It takes away the illusion that one season defines the whole life. It takes away the belief that one person, one mistake, one ending, or one unanswered question can name your entire soul. Let the past return to the past. Say it inwardly if you wish, slowly, like a lullaby for the tired places. That was then. This is now. That was then. This is now. The body understands repetition. The nervous system learns through rhythm. Give it a rhythm of return. That was then. This is now. The bed is here. The bright is here. The night is here. I am here, not trapped there, not required to solve there, not required to become there again. Here. This does not close your heart. It opens it to the only place where healing can happen. You cannot heal yesterday inside yesterday. You heal yesterday by meeting its echo with compassion today. You heal the old room by no longer sleeping inside it. You heal the imagined future by not abandoning the real present. Let the room become real again. Feel its quiet edges. Feel the space above you. Feel the pillow supporting your head without asking for a story. Feel how the breath continues, whether or not the mind is certain. There is great humility in this. Life continues in small mercies. A blanket, a breath, a pause, a chance not to follow the old road, a chance to let the leaf drift, a chance to place the cup down gently, even knowing it was always fragile. If the mind reaches back once more, do not scold it. It reaches because it loved, feared, hoped, or regretted. Thank it softly for trying to protect you. Then guide it back, not there tonight. Here, not then tonight now. Not the broken cup tonight. The hands that can rest. Not the old room tonight. The breath moving through this one. As impermanence becomes less frightening, you may begin to sense the hidden blessing inside it. If everything changes, then the heaviness can change. If every season passes, then this season of sleepless remembering can pass. If no emotion remains in the same shape forever, then peace does not have to be created from nothing. It may already be forming beneath the surface, like dawn preparing behind a dark horizon long before the sky admits it. Let the past have its place. Let the present have your body. Let the future wait without being filled by fear. Tonight, you do not need to hold all of time in your chest. You only need this breath, this blanket, this soft return. And soon, we will enter the final sleep ritual, where every teaching gathers into one simple release, so the body can grow heavy, the mind can stop defending, and the heart can finally understand that it is safe to rest. Now the past has been allowed to return to the past, and the present has become simple again. The room is quiet. The bed is steady beneath you. The blanket rests over the body, like a soft boundary between you and the world's demands. Somewhere outside, life continues in its ordinary way. But here, in this small circle of night, nothing more needs to be carried. Let the final practice begin without effort. Not as something you must perform, not as a test of whether you have understood, not as a promise that no thought will ever return, but as a gentle closing of the hands around peace instead of pain. Feel the body as it is. Not the body you wish were more relaxed. Not the body you think should already be asleep. This body, the one that has worked, remembered, endured, hoped, worried, and still remained with you. Let the toes soften. Let the feet become heavy. Let the calves and knees rest without needing to hold you upright. Let the thighs sink into the mattress. Let the hips release a little, as if the bed beneath you is wider than your fear. Let the stomach no longer guard every feeling. Let the chest open only as much as it can. Let the shoulders drop away from the ears. Let the arms become quiet. Let the hands rest open, no longer holding the empty boat, the cracked cup, the ember, the old question, the person, the mistake, the imagined future, or the version of yourself who thought sleep had to wait until everything was solved. The face can soften now, the jaw can unclench, the tongue can rest, the eyes can float behind closed lids, the forehead can become smooth, like still water under moonlight. If thoughts come, let them come as distant leaves moving on the river. You do not need to count them. You do not need to follow them. You do not need to decide whether they are right or wrong. A thought is allowed to pass without becoming your task. A memory is allowed to appear without becoming your home. A feeling is allowed to move without becoming your identity. This is the freedom you have been practicing all along. You have seen that what returns at night is often not a curse, but a pattern. You have seen that pain may be real, while the story added to pain can be gently released. You have seen that many things you fight in memory are empty boats, drifting without a present driver. You have seen that attachment can disguise itself as love, and that real love does not require you to abandon your own peace. You have seen that forgiveness is not forcing the heart to approve of what hurt it, but setting down the bowl that your tired arms were never meant to carry forever. You have seen that an old pattern loses strength when you stop feeding it with the same attention, the same fear, the same midnight rehearsal. You have seen that impermanence is not only the reason things leave, but also the reason pain can change shape, soften, and move on. Let all of these teachings gather now, not in the mind as ideas, but in the body as permission. Permission to rest. Permission to stop proving you're hurt. Permission to stop waiting for the past to become kinder before you allow the present to be gentle. Permission to be unfinished and still worthy of peace. Breathe in slowly, as if drawing fresh night air into a quiet room. Breathe out slowly, as if releasing one layer of old effort. Again, breathe in, and let the body know it is here. Breathe out, and let the past know it does not need to be carried tonight. If the mind whispers that something is still unresolved, answer softly, yes, and I can rest while it remains unresolved. If the mind says someone still does not understand, answer, yes, and I can stop explaining in the dark. If the mind says there is still guilt, answer, yes, and guilt does not need to be my pillow. If the mind says there is still longing, answer, yes, and longing can sit quietly by the river without steering my boat. This is not denial. This is wise rest. The night was never meant to become a courtroom, a battlefield, a confession room, or a place where every old scene demands one more performance. The night can become a temple of return. Every breath a bell, every exhale a small bow, every softening muscle a candle being gently put out, not because the light was wrong, but because the body is ready for darkness. Imagine now that you are beside the river one final time. The water is calm. The moon is high. On the bank beside you are the things you carried. The old cup, already cracked, but beautiful for the tea it once held. The clay bowl that once carried an ember of resentment or self-blame, now cooling in the night air. The empty chair from the old conversation, no longer demanding your presence. The leaf holding the memory, floating farther away. The worn path through the field, resting under silver grass. You do not need to destroy any of these things. You only need to stop sleeping with them pressed against your chest. Bow to each one. Thank the cup for reminding you to hold life gently. Thank the ember for showing you the cost of carrying pain too long. Thank the empty chair for teaching you not to speak forever into absence. Thank the leaf for carrying what your hands can release. Thank the worn path for bringing you this far. And thank the open field for still being possible. Then turn back toward the simple room where your body lies. This is where healing continues, not in some perfect future, not after every relationship is repaired, not after every question is answered, not after you become a person who never hurts, never misses, never regrets, never remembers. Healing continues here, in the ordinary miracle of allowing the body to sleep. Perhaps there is a younger part of you still awake inside, the part that stayed alert because it believed rest was unsafe. Speak to that part gently now. You do not have to guard the door tonight. You do not have to watch the past. You do not have to replay the signs. You do not have to keep us prepared for pain that has already passed. Come closer. Rest here. We are not ignoring what happened. We are no longer living inside it. Let those words become a blanket within the blanket. Let them cover the places that still feel exposed. Let the heart hear them in a language deeper than thought. We are not ignoring what happened. We are no longer living inside it. The difference is everything. A wise heart does not need to forget in order to be free. It only needs to stop mistaking remembrance for obligation. You can remember and still soften. You can care and still release. You can learn and still sleep. You can be changed by what happened, without letting it rule the whole night. So allow the body to become heavier now, inch by inch, as if each exhale lays one small stone of burden on the riverbank. The stone of needing an answer, set it down. The stone of needing to be right, set it down. The stone of needing them to know your pain, set it down. The stone of punishing yourself for what you did not know then, set it down. The stone of chasing a future that disappeared, set it down. The stone of believing peace must be earned through suffering, set it down. One by one the hands empty, one by one the breath deepens, one by one the night becomes less crowded. If sleep begins to approach, do not reach for it. Reaching is another form of holding. Let sleep come the way fog comes over a quiet field, softly, without permission, without announcement. Let it gather around the edges of thought. Let it blur the old images. Let it make the body warm and slow. You do not need to help it. You only need to stop standing in its way. If you remain awake for a while, even that can be gentle. You can rest before you sleep. You can stop fighting before dreams arrive. You can let the body receive stillness, even if the mind takes a little longer to settle. There is no failure in this room. There is only returning, breath by breath, bell by bell. The old pattern may appear again someday, because old paths do not vanish in one night. But tonight you have touched another way. You have learned the first step into the open field. You have learned the phrase, old pattern, soft breath, return again. You have learned that the past cannot be forced to change, but your response can become more merciful. You have learned that rest is not weakness. Rest is the soil where a new life quietly prepares itself. Let the final words be very simple. That was then, this is now. The river is moving, the leaf is drifting, the cup is set down, the chair is empty, the ember is cooling, the hand is open, the body is safe enough to soften. The heart is allowed to be unfinished. The mind is allowed to be quiet without solving everything. Tonight, you do not need to fight the old pattern. You only need to stop feeding it. Tonight, you do not need to become someone new. You only need to stop abandoning the one who is here. Tonight, you do not need to earn peace. You only need to let peace find the spaces where exhaustion has made you humble enough to receive it. So rest now. Let the breath become smaller if it wants to. Let the body become heavy if it is ready. Let the room fade into softness. Let the night hold what you no longer need to hold. The past can sleep in the past. The future can wait outside the door. And you, here in this quiet bed, can finally let the present be enough. Rest now. The old story has spoken long enough. The silence will take care of what remains.